Signature TV, news in your pocket.
The United States designating Nigeria as a country of particular concern is one that has been making waves in Nigeria's political space and Nigeria as a whole. Now with us in the studio this morning we have Okike Ezugu. He's a legal practitioner here to talk on the US sanction on Nigeria as a country of particular concern, looking at the implications of this. You're very much welcome. Good morning.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Good morning.
Now, from a legal standpoint, what exactly would you say triggers country of particular concern designation, and looking at Nigeria, how do we fit into that?
Yeah, that was a policy statement from the government of the United States. It has no basis in international law, to the best of my knowledge. Because it was not a conclusion that was reached after a UN resolution, for instance. And I don't think the United States has any prerogative or power to pass such overreaching judgments about countries. So if the President of the United States of America and members of his government decided that Nigeria had become a country of particular concern, it is based on their own fact findings, and it passes just as a policy statement of the government of the United States.
All right, so beyond the legal standpoint, we've seen cases of genocide. We've seen thousands of people die in Nigeria, and a lot of people would say that it is a Christian genocide. Now, do you think that Christians or Christianity in Nigeria is under existential threat by Islamists?
Yeah, I think we have to be very careful with the way we mention the word genocide, because it's actually very grave and it has very serious implication. There is a definition for genocide given by the United Nations organization. So you have to look at a set of criteria before you can now qualify a crisis situation as genocidal. What has been happening in Nigeria, it is going to be hyperbolic, a kind of exaggeration for anybody to even remotely refer to it as a genocide. Obviously, there is a crisis in northern Nigeria where you have Islamic terrorists who have been killing people, sometimes targeting exclusively Christian communities. But then it has been to some extent patternless, because we've seen a situation where these Islamic terrorists equally attack Muslim communities and mosques and kill Muslims alike. So it is a delicate situation. It is going to be heedless, if you permit me to use that word, for anybody to just say there is a Christian genocide going on in northern Nigeria. Because if there is a genocide, I don't think we need any foreigner to come and tell us that a genocide is happening in our country. Recently, there was a kind of a war between Israel and Palestine, and which was categorically classified as genocide by the relevant international organizations and bodies. And everybody saw what happened before it got to the extent where it was officially classified as genocide. So I think people are peddling these words without even understanding the gravity of it, and maybe we are taking the character of the personality who said on social media there is a Christian genocide going on in Nigeria a little too seriously.
Now you said that basically, first of all, that the United States has no right to make the assertion that Nigeria is a country of particular concern, that it's rather just a policy statement and not particularly under international law. Nigerian government has also publicly, rejected these allegations on the country. Would you say that there is a way that Nigeria can legally challenge or respond to this designation through some form of diplomatic or international law channel, since, like you said, the United States has no right and it's a policy statement?
Yeah, it's a foreign policy statement of the United States government, and it is not only in Nigeria that countries are being threatened by the present regime in America. You know, there is this finger pointing. You witnessed what happened in South Africa recently. Well, the same regime in America, you know, alleged that the South African government was committing genocide against the white or the Caucasian population in South Africa. And it took the intervention of the president of South Africa, who went to the White House and explained the situation before there was a reconciliation. But in the case of South Africa, the president of the United States did not threaten evasion, as is now the case with Nigeria. He only promised the white population there that any of them who is interested in staying in the United States of America can come under the asylum law. But in this situation, you've seen that the president of the United States of America is actually and seriously threatening to evade Nigeria, and spoke out the terrorists whom he said are committing genocide against the Christian populations in northern Nigeria. So it is a policy statement, and it was not done in conjunction with any international body like the United Nations Organization, which has the prerogative or the power to designate a country as committing genocide, or rather the International Criminal Court.
So I'm asking, can Nigeria legally challenge this designation? Is there a way Nigeria can, through international law channels, challenge this, since you're saying
yes, that is through the United Nations Organization. You know, Nigeria can approach the International Criminal Court, for instance, to present evidence, or the whatever body that is responsible for a situation like this in the United Nations Organization, to present facts and evidence to demonstrate, you know, that there is no genocide going on against the Christian population in northern Nigeria. You know, so this is, I see it as a kind of neglect of the security situation in the country over time, which has deteriorated to a situation where we are now a laughing stock among nations of the world.
Well, so if this is just a policy statement, what ground does the United States president have to make such statements? And then he said that he will cut off every aid and assistance that US is giving to Nigeria. So if they cut it off, peradventure, what is the implication, and where does that leave Nigeria?
Yeah, the United States of America, the aid we are getting from the United States of America is very pivotal and important to the survival of many programs in Nigeria. You know, the United States of America, for instance, has been extremely pivotal in combating HIV/AIDS, and giving aid to Nigeria, and even offering economic support. So if the United States of America decides to sever ties with Nigeria to cut off this aid, it is going to severely impact our economy and our country, and that is why a swift diplomatic approach is necessary in making sure that this situation is not only explained away to the United States of America, but that the federal government starts taking drastic and immediate steps towards addressing the security situation in northern Nigeria, because I believe that these terrorist groups rampaging the northern Nigeria and killing people, both Muslims and Christians, are not beyond the capacity of the federal government to tackle, if they have the political will and the genuineness of intention to actually tackle this situation. And I believe that that is going to be the positive fallout, you know, from these diplomatic fracas or face-off between the government of Nigeria and the United States.
So the United States has the right to carry out these threats in Nigeria?
The United States of America is the most powerful country in the world by far. It is being described appropriately as the hegemon of the world. So it is not as if this is not going to be in conflict with international law to interfere in the internal affair of a sovereign nation, because Nigeria is completely independent, and it is not for any country in the world that is in an ideal situation to invade a country or to bring military equipment into a country and start carrying out military operation without the approval of a sovereign state. But the United States of America can't do that, you know, because powers are not equal. are far more powerful than Nigeria, and if they do it, there is not going to be much consequences except maybe international outrage, which we have seen. We saw what happened in Gaza, we saw what happened in Iran, we saw what has happened throughout much of Latin America and especially South America. The United States of America has unilaterally invaded many countries in the world and nothing came out of it. So it is this hegemony, you know, but it is not as if it is sound or right under international law, but they can do it. And I'm sorry to say, we are not going to have any kind of equal response when it happens.
So why would you say that it seems that the United States seems to be interfering a lot with matters of other sovereign countries like Nigeria? You mentioned South Africa and also other countries as well. Would you say it's because of the power, the influence that they have, and what is the implications of this constant interference that the United States is constantly doing?
Yeah, the body that is saddled with the responsibility of holding some of these powerful countries accountable when they interfere in the internal affairs of sovereign nations, as we've seen. China is also interfering in the affairs of their neighbors, like what is happening in Taiwan, for instance, and in Hong Kong. You know, the United Nations organization is supposed to be saddled with the responsibility of checking these powerful nations. But we have seen that the United States, the United Nations organization, I beg your pardon, does not even have the power to check their excesses because they still control the United Nations organization. So it's a sad situation we are in, and there is no way to sugarcoat it. So the only option left for Nigeria is just to find a diplomatic avenue to make sure that this does not degenerate into a fracas or eventual face-off with the United States.
All right. Where does all of this place Nigeria globally? Where does it place us when it comes to the global space and trying to reshape Nigeria's relation with other countries?
I think Nigeria has a sister in this situation. Something I read, a headline from a credible news source, has it that the United States, under the same president, Donald Trump, is also preparing to invade Mexico under the US Department of War to ready military action in Mexico. And we saw him threaten Panama. We saw him threaten to annex Canada and make it part of the United States. We've seen him threaten a lot of countries. So in this present political climate internationally, I don't think it is much of a thing, but it's important that the Nigerian government takes care of its internal issues to make sure that this kind of international attention is not, Nigeria is not put on this kind of spotlight internationally.
So now, how well would you say that Nigeria, excuse me, how well would you say that Nigeria has handled its internal issues, particularly when it comes to security? Because like you mentioned earlier, that it speaks on our security system that if another country is designating this type of thing to us, so we see that we have new service chiefs. A lot of shake-ups have been happening in the security sector in Nigeria. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, what I have to say is that the allegation that genocide is going on against the Christian population in northern Nigeria is not entirely groundless, even though you would admit that there is some element of exaggeration if we understand the full implication of genocide as a word. It has been pushed a little too far, but it is not entirely groundless. And the Nigerian government has been negligent, if not complicit, in some of the activities of these terrorist organizations in northern Nigeria. You see a situation where a country which is as powerful as Nigeria is entering negotiation with terrorists, and they are coming to this negotiation table heavily armed, and then government officials are sitting down and having negotiation with terrorists who are killing people, killing farmers, displacing communities. And it is not as if we don't have enough military might to crush these people completely. So this is how the situation became suspicious, to the extent that a foreign government is now threatening to invade Nigeria if, because it is conditional, if the government of Nigeria continues to neglect its constitutional responsibility of securing the lives and property of the citizens.
So, how do we get Nigeria to be able to meet up to the global standards? For example, you mentioned US, you mentioned China, most of the countries that have the power, the global power. Where have we gotten it wrong? What are the gaps and the hindrance that makes Nigeria not to measure up with other countries?
I don't think Nigeria is aspiring to become as powerful as China or the United States of America. That is going to be an idealistic pipe dream. For instance, we don't have the technological power. We don't have the territory, and these people started long before us. You know how old the United States is. You know their role during the First and Second World Wars when Nigeria was not even curated. So Nigeria is just like a young, struggling country in Africa. But I believe that with the prudent management of our resources and honest politics, Nigeria is just going to be okay. It's a foreign policy decision when you decide to pursue the ends of aggression or to have influence internationally. For me, if I am the president of a country, for instance, I don't think I would aspire to dominate any other country in the world. My chief aspiration would be to make life better for my citizens. We have some countries in Northern Europe and in Western Europe that are just doing okay without interfering, in the affairs of other countries, and that should be the aspiration of Nigeria. And when you take care of your responsibilities effectively, then you are not going to have a situation where you are hectored by a foreign power, because we invited this. It is the security situation in the country that necessitated this. President Trump did not just wake up and start making completely unfounded allegations about Christian genocide in northern Nigeria. It is something that we have neglected over time, and it's eventually culminated in something this disgraceful.
So in your view, what is the bottom line or the major takeaway for Nigeria in terms of law and governance and rights, looking at how all of this has panned out and the possible implications it might have, in the coming days or weeks?
I want to understand you.
I mean, what takeaway, what bottom line takeaway, what lesson can Nigeria, take from this? What should Nigeria do now at this point, in terms of laws or our governance, seeing that we're already in this situation as a country of particular concern? What is it that we can do at this point to prevent this issue from escalating or, stall the US from, carrying out with their threats that they've made so far?
Yeah, I think it boils down to what we've been saying. There is a situation that brought us to where we are now, the security situation in northern Nigeria, and of course the fact that Nigerian politicians have been behaving like bulls in some China shop, acting without restraint, and engaging in blatant cases of official corruption and just being reckless. So I think it's a combination of these factors that led to the eventual designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. It is the abandonment of governmental responsibility that brought us to where we are today. So if the government is not willing to robustly take up its responsibilities and address some of these concerns, I think Nigeria is going to get back to a good place. But with the nature of our politics, I very much doubt if this is foreseeable.
All right. So finally, before we leave, so how can Nigeria actually balance this, its sovereignty with international expectations on human rights and religious freedom?
Thank you very much. You just summarized it, because it is the lack of respect for religious freedom, as is succinctly provided in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that is giving rise to all of these things. Everybody, as it is in the Constitution, has the right to practice their faith, provided they are not constituting any form of threat to their neighbors or friends. But when we see in northern Nigeria a minority group being severely persecuted, and then you have a criminal, a terrorist organization with a declared agenda of establishing an Islamic caliphate. And you know the implication of that. There is no way they would be trying to establish an Islamic caliphate without first eliminating the populations that profess other faiths. But it is the responsibility of the Nigerian state to stand up to these guys and eliminate them so that we can live up to the ideals and the ideas provided in our constitution and guiding documents.
Well, all right. Thank you very much, Okike Ezeogu. Thank you for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
It's a pleasure having you join us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and thank you for being a part of our conversation. Don't go anywhere as the morning show continues shortly. Do stay with us.
We are local.
International communities observing
Where the main market is in chaos. People are
We are national.
Those in support of this motion as amended, say aye. Aye. We have taken the vote by default.
We are international.
Israeli airstrikes.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.